Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Bleacher Report app and the two-man game with Chris and Scott. We are live with you here on a Wednesday. Hopefully you're having a great week. Today we have a lot in store. My co-host is not with me today. He's taking care of some business, but I will be walking you through some Denver Nuggets 2024 offseason trade ideas. So we're going to have some fun with this one, guys. We're going to try to get into what the Nuggets could possibly do to get on track next season. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek only because the Nuggets don't need to do much, right? The Nuggets, we talked about it. We alluded to it on the last show. Last week, we did the off-season preview for the Denver Nuggets. Go check that out on YouTube. Go check that out on the Bleacher Report app. We will dive into a little bit more here, but the Nuggets don't need to go crazy. The Nuggets are good. We have to have that recollection of what took place. The Nuggets were in Game 7, 20-point lead, third quarter against the Minnesota Timberwolves, almost ready to play the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, which I would have loved their chances in that matchup. I would have loved their chances against the Boston Celtics should they have gotten past the Dallas Mavericks. That's neither here nor there. That's why we're here talking about these offseason trade ideas and ways the Nuggets could potentially get better. Now, that being said, the Nuggets don't have a ton of wiggle room here. They don't have a lot to work with. So we're not going to be going crazy. And, we're going to have a couple different trades options that I'm going to throw out here. One of which I feel can be realistic and can be something that would work. And then a couple different fun ones that they are fun, but we're going to talk about some Michael Porter Jr. trade packages because that's the one piece that I think will be the most bang for our buck when it comes to trading. Because let's just face it, we're not trading and we're not moving Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray aren't going anywhere. One of my things that we really need to do as the Denver Nuggets approach this offseason are bring those two back, which means that, KCP is on the fence here. A lot of interest in KCP. So don't know if he'll come back. We'll get to why here in a second. I just don't know. There's a lot of teams that are really going to be buying for his services. And with what he can do on the court, and if he wants to get a little bit of extra cash going somewhere else, I've heard that there's 20 plus teams that are interested in KCP that I think will be in the mix for his services. So for the time being, for the Michael Porter Jr. trade portion of this show, we're going to assume that KCP decides to come back on a team-friendly deal and we're able to get him back into the mix. So we'll dive into that here in a little bit. But as far as the needs go, there's some things that we talked about on our last off-season preview for the Denver Nuggets that will be needs for this roster, this team, for them to be successful moving forward next season. One is obviously those young players to come up and move into a higher role. So Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, Julian Strother, those guys need to really get going. Also, we're assuming Jalen Pickett, the point guard that we drafted last year, is going to take a step up. The problem is the window for us as the Denver Nuggets fan base is in a place where we really need contributions sooner rather than later. And how many spaces do we have for these players if they do happen to be developing on a path, right? So, you only in the playoffs can play so many players for so many minutes. So there's some steps forward with some of the young players, but there's also a window. So that'll be for another show. So filling up a bench spot, I think, is a big aspect of what the Nuggets need to do. I think filling in that depth is a big need for the Nuggets this offseason. So a backup center, backup 3-and-D small forward, backup power forward that can kind of play and flex center to the power forward position will be important. Also, backup point guard or any kind of just any player that can put pressure on the rim and can create their own shots while also being able to play defense. I know you want everything, right? We want everything here, but players like that don't come around as often as you would like. And especially with the Nuggets not having a lot of flexibility, it's going to be very difficult to fill some of those holes. But we're going to try. We're going to try today. So let's get into some of these trade options. Now, let's put together some options here. We have draft picks to work with, right? With 2025 draft pick, we have a 2026. 2025 is a second round draft pick, by the way. 2026 first and second, 2028 first and second. The second rounders from the Philadelphia 76ers, and then a 2029 second rounder. So those are kind of the landscape of what we're looking at with the Denver Nuggets draft choices moving forward. All right, so let's dive in. When putting together, especially this first trade is going to probably be more my realistic trade potential option that I kind of got creative with it. I try to get creative with how we're going about, putting this together, because it's got to make sense for both sides, right? And one trade that I would like to see, it centers around Zeke Naji. Zeke Naji is a player that was given a contract this past year, and it hasn't worked out. Let's just tell it like it is. Zeke Naji hasn't done enough to contribute on the court to carve out playing time for himself, whether that's injuries, whether that's he just can't get up to speed, whether that's we don't trust him in certain situations. And I think that ship has sailed with Zeke Naji. So Zeke Naji, outside looking in, he's on an $8 million contract, which we're going to get to here in a second on what the details are for that contract, because it's very interesting. Now, my proposed trade for Zeke Naji would center around a trade with the Lakers, and a player that I think would be a very good upgrade here in Denver. And it would be for Jared Vanderbilt. Jared Vanderbilt, power forward, 6'8", 214 for the Los Angeles Lakers. Both have the same length of contracts. So that's, matches with, the details of the trade. But Jared Vanderbilt, he offers size, he offers defense and rebounding, whereas Zeke, again, can't carve out minutes onto the floor. He didn't play a single enough minutes this year to make it worth the contract that we're paying him. The Lakers, on the other hand, struggle with Jared Vanderbilt because he shoots 29% from three, and they need him more as an offensive factor than he can offer for the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers get under $2 million in cap space back on this deal, currently slotted at $178 million in the first apron for the Lakers. But Zeke's contract, interestingly enough, decreases over time. $8.8 million next year is what he's slotted to make, but then it goes down to 8.1, 7.4, and 7.4 over the next 3 years, which on the flip side, Jared Vanderbilt's contract increases over time, 10.7, 11.5, 12.4, and then 13.2 on the last year of his deal. So that being said, Zeke Naji, he's a little younger. LeBron might not be around on the team at that point as we're getting later on into these years within these contracts. So you're going to be able to save cap space. You're going to be able to navigate whether or not you want to keep him around. And he's a nice prospect that could offer you some size and some defense, along with however you try to build that new roster with the Los Angeles Lakers. And you could just have a little flexibility with how you want to navigate that later on. Whereas Jared Vanderbilt gets a little more pricey as the years go on. And are you sold on him being a key piece in your system? To make this work, I think we could get into the weeds with a lot of the different aspects of how we can make this work. But one of the ways we can make it work is getting a third team in, let's say Philadelphia 76ers, and we can kind of throw some players around like Hunter Tyson, I should say, and get a draft pick in there mixed in to make all the numbers work. We're not going to get into the weeds that much, but that's kind of what would need to happen. And this adds only, when it's all said and done, $1.9 million to the Nuggets payroll, which again is going to be advantageous for what Jared Vanderbilt can bring to this team. Because what you would do with this is Jared Vanderbilt would slot in as kind of that backup center position behind Jokic, and he's going to be effective on that second line as opposed to anybody who we've been able to throw out there over the course of the last season or two, right? We haven't had a lot of production from DeAndre Jordan. Nuggets haven't had a lot of production from Zeke Naji. And Jared Vanderbilt offers that size, that rim protection, and some of the defensive versatility. And given the fact that the roster can fit him on that second unit, I think it could be a great fit. And it gives the Nuggets some time to get Jokic off the floor and get a little bit more defense, rebounding on the floor with those non-Jokic minutes so we can stay afloat. Because the Nuggets haven't been able to stay afloat as much as they would like with Jokic off the floor. So that is trade option number 1. So just to recap, Zeke Naji to the Lakers for Jared Vanderbilt, and then, mixing in, again, a trade for a, throwing in a pick and a young player to go maybe with a third team to make the numbers work across the board there. All right, let's get creative, though. Michael Porter Jr. is a very divisive name in Denver when it comes to whether or not fans here locally in Denver want to bring him back or not. So let's dive into it. Let's figure out whether or not we want to bring him back, because I've put together 3 theoretical pie in the sky, so to speak, trades that, although they're pie in the sky trades, could work. They could work. And I'm going to start out with my top one here in a second. Let me just say this with MPJ. Michael Porter Jr. is an interesting piece. He's a tough one to figure out whether or not you want to bring back. Upsides. He's one of the best spot-up, clutch, catch-and-shoot players in the NBA, and it's not even close. He's very, very good at what he does. He has continuity with this team, and he can create his own shot, which is rare for someone his size to shoot the ball as well as he does and to be able to create his own shot and be as lethal as he can, like he was in the Lakers series this past playoff run. That's the peak Michael Porter Jr. that the Nuggets would hope to get back. The downsides are he's on a max contract for a guy who didn't show up in the Minnesota series. He has a little bit of trouble from series to series, from game to game, that finding the consistency. He needs to be taken off the court in late game situations because he has some below average defense in those late game scenarios. Is he bad overall in defense? No, but could there be better options? Yes. And in my opinion, I just don't feel like he attacks the rim as much as he can with the length that he has, getting to the free throw line, drawing some fouls, and getting some of those easy buckets. So there's some downsides to what Michael Porter Jr. is offering this Denver Nuggets team. And if you're asking me whether or not you think a team with 3 max contracts can win an NBA title again, it can be done, but I think we would be better off in a situation where there's only 2 and you have some more flexibility. Now, if it's my decision, I think that the Nuggets are most likely going to bring back Michael Porter Jr. I don't see too much. They're going to run it back, and rightfully so. Again, this team was almost there when it came to beating the Minnesota Timberwolves in that series in that Game 7. So they're most likely, we're not going to see any crazy Michael Porter Jr. trades anytime soon. But of all the players that have the value and have the trade numbers to make something happen on a bigger scale that we feel comfortable letting go, it would probably be Michael Porter Jr. So just put that in perspective. So let's dive into trade number 1 for Michael Porter Jr. And there's 3 trades that I have here packaged that give the Nuggets some depth and give the Nuggets some flexibility when it comes to cap space relief and other aspects of these trades. So one of my favorite pie in the sky Michael Porter Jr. trades that's realistic. The Nuggets trade Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji to the Utah Jazz for Jordan Clarkson and John Collins. Nuggets end up saving $4 million in cap space with this deal. And then we're looking at a starting lineup of Jamal Murray, KCP, because we're assuming KCP isn't going anywhere. That might not be the case, but we're just for this purpose, we're saying KCP stays. So Jamal Murray, KCP, Christian Brown would then move into that starting lineup, which he needs to take that step forward. Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic, with Jordan Clarkson and John Collins coming off the bench along with Peyton Watson. Now, Jordan Clarkson, 32 minutes per game over the last season, 17.1 points, 5 assists per game. So one of the biggest things the Nuggets needed was somebody off the bench that can be reliable from a scoring perspective and be just able to keep that second team afloat from just being able to score points and being able to make something happen offensively. Jordan Clarkson can do that. John Collins, 28 minutes per game, 15 points, 37% from three-point, league average, and from three-point range, 53% field goal percentage, and 8.1 rebounds. That's more than what the Nuggets have seen from anybody else coming off the bench from, a power forward or center that's been coming in late in the game to relieve either Nikola Jokic or Aaron Gordon. So then you've coupled that with some of the young players, Peyton Watson or any of the Julian Strawther, and you can kind of mix in some different options on that bench. But the fact that you can have Murray, KCP, Brown, Gordon, Jokic with Jordan Clarkson and John Collins and everything, all the money works, I kind of like it. And by kind of, I like it a lot. Do I think it might be a little pie in the sky for the Nuggets to make a swing for this? Maybe, but it works. And the Jazz would only take on additional $4 million in cap space in this scenario. So we trade with the neighbors. Trading with the neighbors, I mean, it's always nice to be good to your neighbors, right? We're helping them out. The Jazz end up getting pure scorer and shooter from Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji, who is a nice young talent that could potentially fit in another team that could be able to utilize him a little bit better than what Denver did. So that's trade number one. Zeke Naji, Michael Porter Jr. to the Utah Jazz for Jordan Clarkson and John Collins. All right, let's get deeper into this. Let's have some fun. Let's go trading with the Portland. Let's do a 3-team trade. What do you guys think? Nuggets, Sixers, Trailblazers. In this 3-team proposed trade, the Nuggets would send Michael Porter Jr. to the 76ers, Zeke Naji to the Trailblazers. The Nuggets, in return, would get Malcolm Brogdon, Matisse Thybulle, and center Paul Reed in this deal. So you're getting point guard coming off the bench that's serviceable, right? Malcolm Brogdon, 28 minutes per game, 41% from 3 points percentage, 5.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds, pretty good. Plus Matisse Thybulle and Paul Reed as some defensive-minded players that can come in and not only be good defensively, but maybe make something happen offensively as well. In this deal, the 76ers or the Trailblazers would get the 76ers 2024 first round pick. So that says that pretty much puts the Nuggets saving $3.5 million in cap space. The 76ers get Michael Porter Jr., who they want to build a lot around what they have going on. I mean, and to be able to add Michael Porter Jr. around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey would be in a home run for any 76ers fan that's seeing, a pure shooter come in to add to what they already are building in Philadelphia. And then the Portland Trailblazers are in that building mode. They save a ton of cap space, and they are, $24 million come off the books in that deal with Zeke Naji, and they get a first round pick in 2024 from Philadelphia. So it feels like everybody wins in this one. Maybe not as exciting for the Denver Nuggets with Malcolm Brogdon, Matisse Thybulle, and Paul Reed, but you get that depth that you can feel a little more comfortable with. This isn't the other trade, by the way, is my favorite trade that we already talked about with Utah. But this one, it's underwhelming but effective, and I think that's where we can, make this work in this lineup. It would include Jamal Murray, KCP, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic, with Malcolm Brogdon, Thybulle, Watson, Peyton Watson, and Paul Reed being effective off the bench in that deal. All right. So that's the deal. 3-team trade with Denver, Philadelphia, and Portland. Finally, we'll get to one more. We'll give you one more here in this last trade. And the Nuggets' final MPJ package goes to the Detroit Pistons. That's right. The Detroit Pistons for Isaiah Stewart and Jaden Ivey. So Michael Porter Jr. straight up for Isaiah Stewart and Jaden Ivey. Now, this would not only save the Nuggets a bunch of cap space, about $12.8 million to be exact, and it would also provide them a solid center off the bench in Isaiah Stewart, 6'8" center, who is going to be more than serviceable compared to what the Nuggets have had so far this offseason or the past couple seasons. And then they get Jaden Ivey coming off the bench, who's been averaging 28 minutes per game in his second year with the Detroit Pistons. Young talent, 15.4 points, 43% field goal percentage, coming on with Peyton Watson and Isaiah Stewart off the bench. So, yeah, I mean, that could be a nice fit in the sense that you get somebody backup guard coming off the bench that's going to be effective, going to give you some points, give you that boost off the bench that can, mix in here and there with certain lineups and match up certain ways with certain teams. Also, Isaiah Stewart, I think, gives you a lot of defensive prowess that, some physicality that, again, the Nuggets have never had. So those are the trades that I was looking at over the course of this past week, trying to make things work. Now, there's a lot of trade options out there, and there's a lot of things that I've seen across the board. But again, based off of what we're looking at here in these different deals, the Michael Porter Jr. seems to be the one that's going to be the most effective in getting more back and being able to have flexibility if we end up making a deal with him. Now, Vlatko Konkar and some of these other guys, Julian Strawther, Jaden Pickett, we have the draft coming up here very, very soon, which that's going to maybe impact some of the things that the Denver Nuggets can do and who they're building around. But the thing with the NBA draft is the Nuggets need to start making some moves. Not drastic, nothing crazy, but they need to start making some moves to make the best of this Nikola Jokic window the best it could possibly be. Because Nikola Jokic is 29 years old, and the window isn't going to be there forever. We can't wait for the young players on this roster to develop if they're not going to get to a point where once they're developed, Jokic is getting older and he's on his way out. It's not going to be advantageous for the Nuggets to make it and play that patience game as much as they have leading up to this. Now, continuity is also another issue here with a trade of Michael Porter Jr. You might be asking, how does that affect the continuity of the Denver Nuggets? I would say if it was the last couple years, I would be a little bit more hesitant on breaking things up and changing the continuity and the way this team has really bonded and played together, and they just know each other. We're at a point now where Nikola Jokic has the ability to elevate everybody around him, right? And the thing that the Nuggets have struggled with a lot, and outside of this year, because this past year they were a top 10 defense, was defense. It's easier for Nikola Jokic to elevate the ceiling on the offensive side of the basketball, regardless of who's in the lineup, than it is for him to elevate the defensive side of the basketball. So in looking at some of these trades, it's important to understand that being able to get defensive-minded players and really solid, stout defensive players in a potential trade or on free agency, which, again, they don't have a lot of flexibility, is going to be important because that's something that Nikola Jokic can't always elevate himself through his playmaking, right? So that's going to be the biggest key thing for me, which is why my number one trade that's feasible is that Jared Vanderbilt trade, just to boost a little bit of that defensive side of the basketball. no matter who is slotted in for the Denver Nuggets offensively, you can also, you could put a lot of different players in there, and Nikola Jokic is going to make it so that those guys are going to perform probably better than where they were previously based off of what his playmaking and what he's able to elevate their games to. Much like on the way out, you see players like Will Barton who have left. You see players like Mason Plumlee and some of these other guys who have left where they get big paydays, or they move on to another team and just fall off and just don't have the same success as they did in Denver. That's the Nikola Jokic effect of raising their ceilings of what they could do in this Denver Nuggets offense. So that's why I really focus around depth, defense, and making sure you have somebody coming off the bench when Jokic is off the floor to make something happen when you're just in those non-Jokic minutes. So that's where we're at, guys. We will be coming back with some more updated trades as the offseason comes down the line. So we'll be revamping some of these because we're going to have some different, updates, whether or not KCP and some of these other guys might have some more rumors coming out, and we'll have to adapt to different changes on the NBA landscape. There's a lot of trade rumors out there that we're going to probably be discussing moving forward. So, as we get further on into the offseason, as we get closer to the NBA draft, we'll be covering some more content as well. You can catch us live each and every single Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday on our other channels. ActionLab Sports and ActionLabSports.com is where you can find additional content, but Twitch is where you can find us each and every single Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. We'll be covering NBA, we'll be covering NFL, all sorts of playoff action and hockey, you name it, we got it covered. So join us there as well. Otherwise, Bleacher Report app, we will be doing a lot of Nuggets and basketball content heading your way very, very soon. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. I'll have my co-host back in the mix here in the two-man game, because it can't be a two-man game if there's only one man, right? We got to have the Jokic, we got to have the Murray. So just like that, we'll bring Scotty back in and we'll get you that two-man game that you know and love. But thank you for being here on a Wednesday. Hopefully you have a great rest of your week. And again, tonight, Action Lab Sports on Twitch. And we will see you back next time on the two-man game. Love you guys.